All right, welcome to episode 124 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We're recording July 18th, 2021. My name's Eric, the host of the show, based in Southern Ontario, hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and of course, my football team's water boy, according to the show notes here. Thanks, Ian. As a first responder, I witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events, and I started a small preparedness company to help people get prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
My name is Ian, and I live on Vancouver Island. I'm not good enough to make it on the football team, but I am a student in preparedness. I'm also a target shooter, my farm's designated mediocre handyman.
I'm Alan. I'm a safety trainer, first responder, security expert, and overall safety nerd, not affiliated with a football team tonight.
I'm Scott, first responder, splitting my time between Southern and Northern Ontario. I like learning things, and I don't accept that things will always carry on the way they have simply because it's convenient to me.
If you want us to help support the show, keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air, buy some swag. We have both Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirts and the super wicked awesome cool tactical Velcro patch as depicted on Scott's screen right now. You can get those both at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
If you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes to like us on Facebook and submit a review on iTunes. If you want to give us any feedback, good, bad, or if there's a topic you'd like us to cover, just let us know. Feedback at prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some saturated content for you in this episode. We were going to make something about Steamy, but we figured we'd let Alan down. So we're going to start off with some preparedness-related news articles. Next, we'll let you know what we've done for our preparedness since last week, and then we'll get into the main topic, the importance of hydration.
Let's move into the news. The way that I live my life. My article here, I've been able to kind of corroborate this with a couple of other news sources. So I believe this to be at least reasonably accurate. But this article points to specifically how it was determined that Cuba is actually jamming a bunch of AM radio frequencies, including ham radio on the 40-meter band. So there's a lot of communication blockage between Cuba and the rest of the world right now. And that's one of those things that absolutely terrifies us, right? The first thing you got to control in an insurrection is communication, and if they can't transmit outside the country, then we have to rely on this communist government state news to determine what's actually going on. And I think we all know how I feel about commies.
Well, the same way you do about carbon monoxide.
We almost beat the spread. They had 305. We were almost there.
I'm just going to point out Kyle here was guessing 225.
Yeah, and then Brad said 305. So we almost beat the spread.
Almost. But I introduced it, so does it count?
Yeah, it does, because it doesn't say whether I mention it. It just says before the first reference.
I figured that was implied.
There are two things in the world I hate. It's communists and carbon monoxide. So yeah, it was real. It's actually I found the article to be really interesting about how they came up with where the jamming signal was coming from. So that's my link tonight.
Well, I think Eric, you can kind of point out, Eric, where you see the little waterfall on some of the HF bands. You can see where there's activity. Is that kind of the case if it shows they were jamming it?
Yeah, because you'd have just like a big solid bar there, I would imagine, if they're jamming everything. So you're not going to see different frequencies or different transmissions on the frequency.
Yeah, so I was watching a YouTube video from a ex-Cubano there that's living in Miami, and he was showing on the HF band, you could see like the blue bars on the waterfall display. He says, yeah, you can see right there on the ham bands where they're jamming it. I'm like, oh, well, look at that. So I hadn't heard of it until I saw Alan's article and I looked it up. Yeah,
I'm going to have to read the article. I haven't read it myself. But you would be able to track back where that signal's coming from to send the jam out, because it'll be strong in one specific point, right?
Well, yeah, it'd be a DF steer, right? So
yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I got a couple. First one is Paris is in flames once again, this time over a mandatory vax order. So I guess they've been protesting with the Gilets jaunes for a year and a half, 2 years now. And I guess they introduced mandatory vaccination for healthcare workers. And I guess that was just one thing too many for the French people who had been putting up with a lot of stuff over the last while. And so they decided to erupt in their own little demonstrations. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's actually some pretty good pictures coming out of Paris right now because they pretty much trashed the town. So interesting, more riots.
But they're much better at getting things changed than we are, so it's really hard to argue that.
Well, they do have that history of decapitating people that make them a little too angry.
Mm-hmm.
That might be something we should consider again.
Well,
I mean,
if we did,
not
we'd have to
any one person specifically decapitating or being decapitated, but I mean, even just a reasonable threat might make some particular people pay more attention to what those of us who are those of the Canadians that are allegedly making said threats are allegedly asking for.
Well, I bet you, like, unlike us, they don't apologize afterwards, right? Like, if we did, we'd have to apologize afterwards. Like, oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, second article I had was thanks to listener Darius. He mentioned that there's a major TELUS cell phone and everything coverage in Alberta outage. And interestingly enough, when they had one line get cut in eastern Alberta, they had no emergency services communications available, no internet, no phone, no cable, no nothing, just on one line getting cut. So, good statement on the tenuous thread society hangs on.
Yeah, that's wild that one cable.
Yeah, one cable. And not only that, but they came right out and said, if you have an emergency, don't call 911 because it won't work. And they actually suggested that you get together with your neighbors and come up with a plan of attack in case of emergency.
Yeah, I saw that in the news. And
it's a great idea.
Like, wow.
I was like, it's almost like you're telling us to create mags. Like, wow.
You're telling us to solve our own problems and not rely on the government.
I was blown away. I was like, that's awesome. I'm glad you're mentioning
phenomenal.
that. But
even a broken clock is right twice a day, right?
Maybe not during the emergency. Maybe ahead of time would have been a good idea. But okay, sure.
True, yeah. Better. Yeah.
But no, it was a good one. So thanks to Darius for the article or for the heads up that was happening. I had no idea until he told us. So
nice. So I've got a news article here from CP24, and I'm sure pretty much any listener in Ontario has heard about the total of five tornadoes in Ontario on Thursday. So a big EF2 touchdown in Barrie. So an EF2 is anything that's 178 to 217 kilometers an hour. Barrie came in at about 210 kilometers an hour. So it sounds like a whole bunch of houses were wrecked or damaged. And last I heard, there's about 11 or 12 injuries, no deaths, thankfully, but there was definitely some injuries. And it happened very, very quickly. We got the emergency alert here about the tornado warning, and then all of a sudden you're getting reports of tornadoes in South Barrie. So it's crazy.
Our system in Ontario, at least, allows for about 4.5 minutes. It's on about a 4.5 minute refresh cycle. So we've got it's really not a lot of warning that bad things are happening. So it's that can warn. Those can warn videos are phenomenal for at least keeping you alert of what to look for, and kind of making you aware of when it's time to go hide downstairs.
Yep, 100%. Yeah,
guys, I have to bow out of the podcast. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. All right. So
I had a news article. We were talking about this a little off air about Bruce Beach passing away. He lived up near Orangeville and had created, I believe it was the world's largest privately owned bunker, consisting of 42 school buses that were buried, and he made this fairly large facility. It was quite impressive. Anyway, he passed away of natural causes at the age of 87 back in May. But no one's really sure what to do with this facility that he'd spent years building and sort of getting all sorts of friends to help with. And it was interesting because it got me thinking about some of my older prepper friends, one or two of whom have passed on, and what happens with sort of the legacy that you're hoping you build for yourself, your children, your family. And whether it's just going to be a wicked garage sale one day, or if someone's going to pick up the torch and sort of continue what you've started. So it's food for thought.
I want all my stuff on a boat, lit on fire, and floated out to sea like a Viking.
All right, we can arrange
All right
that.
then. Okay. Noted. It is now documented forever on the internet. So yeah.
I will practice my flaming archery.
There's a there was actually at least one, potentially two episodes of Doomsday Preppers in which Bruce Beach was featured in his his Arc 2 bunker. I don't know what to call it. Homestead pass.
That's a survival bunker. I think that's what he referred to it
Yeah,
as.
I think that's how he referred to it. So yeah, it was at least a couple of episodes. So there's actually a fair bit of great information out there about him and what he was doing there, which is pretty cool. So
the article in the show notes just talks about some of the other things he had done in his life, and it just sounds like an absolutely fascinating individual.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's worth a check out to read the article.
Mm-hmm.
Should I move into what we've done lately for preps?
Absolutely.
All right.
I actually have like an Ian level of stuff to talk about this week. It's exciting.
All right.
I had wanted for a long time to try canning, so I got in on strawberry season and got a basic canning kit and listened to episode 36, I think it is.
In and around
the podcast.
Yeah, I made some
episode. Yep.
strawberry jam, and it turned out really quite well. So I bought all the stuff, made my reservation at the diabetes clinic, put a lot of strawberries and a whole lot of sugar in, and I think it turned out pretty well.
It blows me away the amount of sugar that you have to put in the
It's
the jam.
kind of mind-boggling, actually.
Yeah.
I've tried a couple of different recipes. I'm like, yeah, you really need as much sugar or more than the fruit.
Yep.
I got to learn about my septic system very intimately, unfortunately.
Uh-oh. Ooh.
So there's two styles of septic system: the purely gravity fed and the ones that involve a pump. Mine involves a pump, and it's starting to smell like it shouldn't. It was just the GFI had tripped. Oh, perfect. Okay, reset the GFI until it trips again. Uh-oh.
So just reset it again.
Well, exactly. So there, it ended up being, thankfully, the least expensive part in the whole thing that I had to replace. But to get in to replace it was a rather unpleasant process. I made the jam before I did the septic work, and I've showered since. So all is well. I ordered some firewood. I would love to cut up logs myself, but I just do not have the time. So we ordered some firewood just so that we can have that stacked away, ready to dry. And the whole episode we did the 1 year thing where Ian pointed out that it's be great bartering stuff. It's not like you can ever have too much of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, yeah, I like that. And then I worked on my Faraday box. So I did the ammo can Faraday box. I went to test it just putting an FRS radio inside and seeing if it's matching one on the outside would make it respond, and it did. So I haven't quite tweaked or figured out what if it's a frequency thing, if there's some gaps in my seal, but we'll see. So I'll get that done and then sort of brag about it on a later episode, I think. So
it's half the fun.
Well, exactly.
Hey, is that your list?
That is, yes. I by my standards, that's a lot, I think.
That is a fair amount. Yeah, that's good. All right. So for myself, I know this is going to be shocking for everybody. I tweaked my ham setup, messed around with my gear for a bit, and then was able to make contacts in Hungary and France. So I guess whatever I tweaked worked. So I made a couple of contacts there, and I got 5.9 signal reporting. So that means a perfectly readable, a very strong signal from both those stations in Hungary and France. So that was interesting. And Chris brings up a good point in the live chat here as well, in regards to when the tornadoes were happening in the area here, that as soon as the tornado hit Barrie, ham was buzzing, and he's right, the frequencies were quite busy with a whole lot of traffic. So what else? So we went out camping for the first time with our little guy, little prepper in training, and things went well. So that's good. we'll get him out a few more times here, but seemed to enjoy it, so that was good. Met with a local like-minded individual who happens to be a listener, but I'm not going to put his name out there because I don't know if he's all right with it. So we'll leave it at that. We went over our kits, made some suggestions to each other because two heads are better than one. So it's always good to sit down and look over each other's kit and see what you would add, what you take away, and vice versa. So that was good. Came away with a few extra things to add to my setup. Met up with Gavin from the other CPP, and we bitched and moaned about the government, which I know is shocking. So
I'm blown away to hear that.
I know it was totally a random conversation. I didn't think that's how it would go, but it did. Started to dive a lot deeper into open source intelligence and to kind of help identify where I'm leaking some information and closing those gaps up. It's terrifying. There's a lot of information out there. And what else? So yeah, and gearing up for our second round of renovations. We're starting the first week of August because we're crazy. So
that sucks.
Yeah. Just when we thought we were done.
There's no such thing as done.
No, bring on the main floor. Here we go. And we're staying here for it, so that's going to be even better.
That makes everything so much better.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Double.
I got a giant bottle of Advil ready to go.
Excellent.
Well, yeah, that's my list.
And just make sure you throw all your calendars out because they no longer exist. Time is no longer relevant.
No, it's not.
So I also am working on renovations. Work on my new garage project is the primary focus of my life right now. So I got the in-floor heating piping now almost all laid. Fingers crossed. I've got concrete coming this week as long as the weather cooperates. I did discover a gap in my preps this week when the big sump pump in my basement overloaded. So I have two pumps because I have two rather distinct levels in my basement from the original foundation and an addition that was put on the back of the house. Unfortunately, the big pump is the part that keeps the occupiable area dry, and so I came home to about 5 inches of water. Good news was almost no damage since I had planned for this, and all of my shelving is up off the floor, so I was okay there. But I realized I didn't have a way to clear the water out so that I could get to the sump well to fix it. So I had to go get a submersible pump, which I then, obviously connected to the garden hose, pumped that out to the field behind me. Got a new dehumidifier, threw in a nice big fan that I was going to get anyways, and my basement is now, fingers crossed, set up for success for the next few years, just in time for the first pump to crap out, because I replaced that coming up on just about 3 years ago. So I'm guessing it'll fail sooner than later, and we'll keep an eye on it. So that's been my excitement. That's been my big excitement, and I'm getting ready to go away on vacation. So that's been the rest of my focus. So that's where I am.
Very nice. Well, with that, maybe we'll move into the main topic.
So we are talking about hydration. We're in crazy hot weather here. We're doing things outside. We have presently the luxury of coming into air conditioning and getting a glass of lemonade out of the refrigerator. Yep. But if society isn't going well, and all of a sudden you have to think about these things, the general rule is if you don't have water for 3 days, you're going to die.
Yeah.
So, one of the Patriot challenges was drink 2 liters of water per day, which, you can sweat that out in 1 hour. But, you think about it, it's only 2 Nalgene bottles a day. It's really not that much.
It's funny how it seems like a lot, though. Unless it's
absolutely.
beer in front of you, then you can drink it all day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
2 liters of beer, not a problem.
No problem.
That's an easy afternoon, but
Yeah,
2 liters of water.
2 liter of water. That's a real challenge. Yeah.
So you have to start thinking about getting heat cramps, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, sort of the subtle bits of dehydration. We're all probably a little bit dehydrated on a normal day-to-day basis. But if things aren't going well, let's face it, it's going to get a whole lot worse. And this is something, hopefully wherever you are, water was a consideration for your, bug in, bug out place to be. So we have to think about that. So early stages of dehydration, you're confused, you're irritable, you can get constipated, you can start getting sort of cramps, illnesses, and later on things are going to start to get worse. So
That already sounds pretty bad.
Yeah, it sucks to begin with, and the further
Yeah.
it goes, the worse it gets. And I mean, like, we've all likely experienced this at some point or another, whether we recognized it as dehydration or not. Long term, it can lead to major kidney damage. Big fancy word of the day is tissue hypoperfusion, which really just means that your organs are thirsty. You don't have enough fluid left in your body to create blood or to manage your blood level, and therefore you're not getting enough oxygen to your organs, and we call that a suboptimal outcome. It's poor circulation that will shut everything down, and the closer you are to that, the closer you are to expiring from perspiring.
Look at you with all the fancy words tonight.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't. You killed my carbon monoxide reference, so I gotta make it up somehow.
Fair enough. I had to get ahead of you on that one. Yeah.
So we've all experienced heat cramps.
Yeah.
I would imagine we've all experienced heat cramps. If you haven't, then well, work harder. But the big things to look for with heat exhaustion, so the earlier stages of heat illness, the big things to look for: headache, dizziness, obviously feeling thirsty. By the time you feel thirsty, you're already into the early stages.
Too late.
Cramping, especially, I find it anyways in myself. I find it in my legs more than anything else. But cramping and even rapid heartbeat or a bit of a flutter are kind of the early signs of heat exhaustion. This is the time to stop what you're doing, keep this from becoming an emergency, and
manage it while it's manageable.
Yes, manage it before you have to have somebody else manage it. So
totally
at this point, you're still sweating. Yeah, you're still sweating, but you're realizing that you're not feeling well. That's the time to get rid of any excess clothing as much as you can. You start active cooling. This is a great time to jump in the pool, go jump in the lake if you've got a body of water nearby. If you don't have a body of water nearby, one of the best things that I've ever found is a bed sheet. Make it wet and then blow a fan over it, or just flap the sheet. It creates a wind chill effect, and in this case, we want the wind chill. The wind chill helps us. We hate it in the winter because it makes everything a whole lot colder, but that's what we want right now. So that'll help bring your body temperature back down, and then as much fluid as you can take slowly. So you don't want to be chugging water. It's going to make you vomit, but keep your up your fluid intake as much as possible. So the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety recommends that when the humidex gets over 35, you're drinking 1 cup or about 250 mils of water every 15 to 20 minutes. Which, again, I will argue is nowhere near enough if you're actually working outside, but that's your minimum baseline. So that puts you about 2 liters an hour, which is a thing, right? That's a good number to make if you're sweating. If you're not sweating, about an hour a liter is as much as your kidneys can process, and you're just kind of passing the rest through without being any benefit. But start adding sweat into that, and you need more. If you ignore those signs, you end up in progressing into heat stroke, and heat stroke is the one that we now need help with. You've lost too much fluid to be able to replace on your own. So it's time to go to the hospital. You should be calling 911 for this. It's one of the few times that's a legitimate 911 call.
We're well past the point of no return.
Yeah, you're past the point of no return, and this is like heat stroke is indicated normally when you stop sweating. Because when you stop sweating, your body is no longer able to disperse the heat that's in your body, and you become even more hot and more dehydrated faster. So nausea, confusion and aggressive behavior are the two big earmarks of somebody who is somebody's experiencing heat stroke. Generally, you'll also expect to see like hot red dry skin, and so just like any other time, when you're assessing somebody else, you're looking for that person's normal. So if somebody's skin is already red before they started sweating, then don't worry about that. But if somebody is normally fairly pale or reasonably tanned, all of a sudden their face is really bright red. If they were sweating and now they're not, and they seem confused or they're not responding normally to what they should be, that's the time that we need to take active control of this situation and keep them from dying. So we're going to help them. We're going to help them the same way as we can with heat exhaustion. If they can still drink on their own, cool fluids is good. If they can't, then don't force it on them.
Yep.
That's about what I have to say about heat exhaustion, heat stroke. Anything more to add from that, Scott?
No, I think that's a great summary of it. If you're calling 911, there's the advantage of starting an IV and being able to get fluids in without risk of them vomiting up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One thing that we didn't have in the notes here, but having done enough outdoor sporting events and stuff where people are guzzling electrolyte drinks, and sort of not balancing water and electrolyte drinks, all things in moderation. If it's just water and you need some salt replacement, you need some electrolyte drinks. If it's just sugar and salt and you're not getting enough water in, you can throw the whole system horribly out of balance that way. So just be mindful that not all electrolyte drink, not all water, a little bit of each as needed. If you're sweating, all that salt has to be replaced somehow. So if it's just water going in, awesome, you're replacing the fluid, but don't forget the other components. So,
and one of the things I try to avoid is the pre-manufactured. I'll shout out Gatorade and Powerade. If you are being athletic and you actually need the calories from the sugar, then that's one thing. But most of us don't need that, and the added sugar is not great for you as well. I tend to use, and I have absolutely no affiliation. I'm just a fan of the product. I use BioSteel hydration mix. It has no sugar. I love the flavors. They've got a whole bunch of different ones. I keep a bunch of their. They've got some single serve packets. I keep those in my day pack. Actually, I keep them on my bunker gear for on the fire truck, and then I keep the larger containers of the powder around in a couple of flavors, so that I've got I keep my electrolytes up wherever I am, and it has no sugar, and I think it tastes better than Gatorade. So that's my shout out to them. Things to be aware of, right? How do you tell when you're dehydrated? One, if you feel thirsty, it's too late, drink more. The best like objective measurement of somebody's level of hydration is their urinary output. So the darker your urine, the less hydrated you are, and drink more fluids. The closer it's to clear, the better it is. So I always say dark is bad, absent is worse. If you're sweating it out so bad that you're not peeing, you're not drinking enough water. I remember one particular day a few years ago when I actually worked for a living, and I was outside in a parking lot working on a gate and an operator, and we were out there in a parking lot for 7 hours. I drank 11 liters of water and didn't pee once.
Wow. That's crazy.
That was nasty. That was a bad day.
Sounds like it.
Yep.
So we've got a comment in the live chat here from Rome One. It says, worked 12 years as an AC tech in Las Vegas. I did a couple of things. It's important to keep your brain cool, so we put ice in our ball caps. The melting ice would keep the head cool and keep your shirt wet to increase the cooling of your trunk. That's a good point.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like that.
And he goes on. He says another one that helped a lot was wearing a buff and either keep it wet or better use it as a wrap to put ice in it, and then it helps cool you off that way as well.
Yeah.
I like it.
Absolutely. If you're especially like targeted cooling, especially in the places that accumulate heat, so your neck, your armpits, your groin, those are all great places to actively cool first if you have to target it.
Yep.
And prevention is always better than cure. So that's I like that. I like that way. Yeah, it makes good sense. And then Jeff makes a good point too. Don't drink ice cold water. It can put your body into shock. It will. I find anyways. It makes my throat close up if it's too cold. It'll make my throat close up. I don't want to. My body rejects that really quickly. So that's So those are your big things. Now, how much water do you need? Great question.
That is a good question.
Probably more than we're already drinking.
Absolutely,
almost guaranteed.
Absolutely. So, I challenge myself every day to drink as much water as humanly possible. I have a 1 liter Nalgene bottle. I put 7 elastic bands around it, and at the beginning of the day, I roll all of those elastic bands up over the halfway point. And every time I fill the bottle, I roll one down. So my goal is to get as many times as move as many elastics as I can. It's not enough. I just don't drink enough water. I try. I just don't. The problem is, especially like when I'm working at home, it's great. When I'm out on the road and you got to pee every 12 minutes, now especially, there are no bathrooms anywhere. Everything's closed. It's getting better, but standing outside waiting to get into a Timmy's to go to the bathroom sucks. So I'm using that as a really poor excuse to not drink enough water. But if you need to come up with a number, half your body weight in ounces is a good starting point. That's your baseline.
Yep.
And then add when you're working hard.
That's good.
Again, if your urine is dark, drink more.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ultimate. But yeah, start with half your body weight in ounces. That'll give you a starting point, and then add to it. Don't drink contaminated water.
Yeah,
was that episode 7 or 8, maybe 9 was the first water episode
around there. Yeah,
we've done a few of them, right? There are all kinds of ways to get clean water, specifically ocean water, right? Salt water. Stay away from that. That will.
Bad idea.
You need some electrolyte replenishment. So you can get electrolyte replenishment either from a premixed powder like BioSteel, like Gatorade, like Kirkland Signature knockoff brand, whatever it is. You can also get that from food. Potassium is found in bananas, and sodium is found in just about everything. And magnesium, I can't think of an immediate food source for that, but you can also take it as an individual supplement. So there are all kinds of options for getting those electrolytes back in, but you want to make sure that you're getting them. Otherwise, you'll end up. I end up with really bad cramps if I'm out of whack that way.
Yeah, I like your low tech solution to tracking your water intake. I'm very high tech in my way of doing it. If anybody's heard of
those fancy bottles that has that has an app and reminds you.
Yeah, I've got the Hydrate Spark. Yeah,
awesome. Like
it ties into my my fitness watch there, the iWatch that I have, and it keeps track of any kind of exercises I do or how much walking I do or any of that, and then it adds or subtracts the amount of water that I should intake for the day, and it just keeps me on track, right? Because if I didn't have that reminding me that, hey, stupid, start drinking. Yeah, coffee.
Absolutely. Well, and
another coffee.
It's especially if any of your goals in life include fitness, hydration is number one. And if you work with any kind of personal trainer or nutritionist and they don't tell you to drink more water, and you argue with them about how much water you drink, and they say, I don't care, drink more. Find a new trainer, because they're not giving you good advice. Every aspect of fitness starts with hydration.
100%.
And I mean, that way works for me, and it's mostly because I've done that for a long time, and I think the current Nalgene bottle that I've got is encroaching on 10 years old, and it's still going strong, and I have no need to replace it, so I don't bother.
Yep. I like that low tech solution though, because that's going to work no matter what.
Yeah, it sure is. And if
I
I
like
forget my watch, or I take it off for whatever reason and don't put it back on, then it's not, it's still there, and it's a visual indicator for me, and that's the system that works for me. No matter what, whatever system works for you. If the super fancy bottle that like flashes at you and sends an alert to your phone to tell you to drink more water, if that's what works for you, do it.
Yeah, it works when times are good.
Yeah,
but if times are bad, it's not going to work. So
well, like
I'm getting some elastic bands.
Yeah, well, we have a rule in the fire service, right? Like hydration begins the day before your shift, because it takes time to build up, right? I could chug 7 liters of water right now. I would piss most of it away, quite literally, and it wouldn't do me much good. But if I drink water consistently, it's like working out. If I can work out really, really hard once, and it's great, but it doesn't produce long-term results. So hydration is a daily thing. It's one of the basics of any kind of healthy life, and the results of not being well hydrated will quite literally kill you. The better hydrated you are before you go into an emergency situation, the better off you are overall.
Now, here's a question for the heat stroke. I know we mentioned hospital right away. Let's throw in the scenario that there is no medical assistance available or readily available. What's something that we could try doing for treatment? Is there anything? I guess is the question.
So active cooling, right? The same thing as we did before with heat exhaustion, right? I want to get that person's body temperature down, like back to normal as quickly as possible. Replenishing the fluids is the big challenge. By the time you're at a level of heat stroke, getting water on board, getting fluids on board without vomiting becomes much more of a challenge. And of course, anytime you vomit, you're losing more fluid, so it makes the problem worse. So if you can sip fluid, this is where ice chips are handy, right? If you've got, or you can, if you can soak a rag and like kind of dribble water into somebody's mouth to really, really slowly bring it back, as long as they're no longer losing fluids because they've been cooled down, that will help. Assuming you can't get to medical attention, but like that's the kind of thing where wherever you call for help from, right, a helicopter is coming to get you because it's bad, like you're in a bad state. So again, prevention far better than cure. But yeah, if you were out on your own and if you're out away from help, or you're in a place where it's going to take some time for help to come, dribble fluid or melt some ice chips into that person's mouth. Get water in slowly and keep them cool.
And if they're at the heat stroke because they're not sweating, the active cooling is basically artificial sweat. Right, you're trying to sweat for them so that fluid you're adding onto them can evaporate off and take away some of that heat. Because earlier we'd sort of described you go from heat exhaustion to heat stroke, you stop sweating, and all of a sudden your heat spikes because all your cooling mechanisms have failed.
Right.
So
good to know.
I like that. I like that description, artificial sweat.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yep. It's also why in Southern Ontario we have such high instances of heat exhaustion, is because we've got such high humidity. There's nowhere for the sweat to go. So even if you're sweating, when the humidity gets high, there's nowhere for it to evaporate. Which is why bike riding is a great thing, because it produces wind, which gives the moisture somewhere to go.
Nice. But again, of course, if EMS or any kind of emergency service or hospital is available, that's obviously the number one route to go.
Number one. Yep.
Don't try to sweat for somebody if you can get them to a hospital.
No. Yeah. That's if help can't get there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, you're in the back country of Algonquin Park and help is coming, but it's a day or two away.
Yeah.
That's when you have to take those measures into your own hands. And the good news is that whoever you're talking with on the other end of the line will be able to talk you through some of that.
Oh yeah.
But it would also be in everyone's best interest, if you're going to be that remote. a bag of normal saline will and an IV kit will do wonders once you are proficient at starting that line. Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the more dehydrated somebody is, the harder it is to get a stick. So you want to get that needle into the vein. So we want to get
absolutely.
you want to get that started sooner than later.
Please seek out training before trying that.
Yeah, no, like don't just like grab one and you're gonna do it, but go get trained trained on that. That's not a YouTube video. That's
No,
that's some practice.
no, yeah, it's definitely some training involved for that. Yeah,
Yep. That would be something that I'd be keenly interested in carrying with me if I was going into a backcountry situation.
Yeah. Maybe we should talk about ways to store water. So we've got the obvious bottles. Of course, that's a great way to store some water. The water bob. I'm pretty sure most of the listeners have heard of the water bob, but if you haven't, it's just a plastic liner that goes in your bathtub, and then you can fill it up with water, and it just keeps the water away from the side walls of the tub that could have soap scum or whatever else, depending on what your bathtub looks like.
Clean food grade plastic.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, so it keeps it usable. Sealed barrels. That's another way of doing it.
Sure.
Rain barrels. That's more of a gray water, I would think, depending on where the source of the water is coming from. But
it's cleanable.
But it's still
as long as you can collect it.
Yep. Exactly. What else? Got a well and a hand pump. That'd be a nice to have.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Not cheap to put in apparently, but
no. Any running water source as well, right? Any fresh water source, especially if you've got not a life straw. What's the good version of that? Sorry,
the Sawyer.
I'm Sawyer. That's the one I was thinking. Yeah. All I could think of was Berkey, and I know that's a built-in system, but you're not carrying that with you into the backcountry. But a Sawyer filter.
There's travel versions of Berkey.
Travel versions, yeah. So
there's smaller ones.
Yep. So if you've got a filtration system, obviously the cleaner the source, the less the filter has to work, which is good. But just about anything can be made drinkable if you try hard enough.
Yeah, that's true. Just don't drink chemically contaminated water.
Yeah,
because pretty much all your filters are not going to help with that.
Yep.
What else do we have on the list? Freezing issues is obviously something you're going to want to keep in mind in Canada because freezing happens.
Freezing happens.
Yeah.
And like water is one of those weird chemicals that expands when it freezes as opposed to contracting like most things. So make sure you leave some space if you're in your bottle. On the topic of that, when I'm packing water, I like my Nalgene bottles. I like my Camelback, but I tend to default to individual water bottles, like smaller bottles, simply because if I drop one, I don't lose all of my water.
Rome One's got a good point in the live chat here. Food grade IBC tote. So if you're looking to store a lot of water. Yep,
that's a lot of water.
If you're looking to store a whole bunch of water, that's one way of doing it.
So like 1,000 liters in your backpack.
It's one heck of a workout trying to lift that.
Yeah,
but if you're planning on staying in place, that's a good way to store
absolutely.
a whole lot of water in a small area.
On scale, they're really not that expensive either.
No.
And if
I see them listed around here on like Marketplace and such.
Yep. And I'd still want to filter that after after it's been sitting in there for a while. But it's it's food grade. It's not going to degrade. So as long as it's clean, when you put water into it, it'll be reasonably clean when you bring it out.
Yep.
You just get that algae taste unless it's insulated. I find that the hotter water gets, the more it's the more it tastes like the algae that just exists everywhere, which is kind of gross. I have a really hard time drinking that water.
Let's see.
Yeah, make sure you clean your water. Go back. We've done water episodes a couple of times. So why you need clean water? This is why you need clean water.
Yeah.
And
of course, if you're going to boil your water, just be careful of carbon monoxide.
There you go, guys. 44 minutes in.
Yep.
If you're going to boil your water, boil it outside. Make sure your
Yep.
carbon monoxide detector is plugged in. That's exactly right.
Even during the apocalypse, if the power is out, carbon monoxide detector is plugged in.
The last 2 batteries you have go in your carbon monoxide detector.
That's right.
Exactly. Yep.
Carbon monoxide, by the way, does not travel through water. It can't be contaminated. Kyle has a good question.
That's a great question.
So water should be rotated out as often as gas. I don't know about as often as gas, but yes, you should be rotating through your water stores. What we do here is we have a 5-gallon jug per person in the house, and we're constantly rotating through that. So your general rule of a gallon, or like 4 liters per person per day. Obviously, we're going through that a lot less because we're using tap water, but we have those water jugs and we rotate through those, which works out to probably once a month or so that we're every 2 months that we're rotating through one of those. As long as it's kept cool, dry. Yes, keep your water dry is what I just said there. Keep your containers dry.
Wasn't going to say it. Wasn't going to go there.
Don't store them in places where they can leach chemicals, like on your concrete floor. That will help prolong the life, and then absolutely rotate through. So a case of water is pretty cheap. Earworm for the deal of the week, but running through a couple of cases of water, having a couple of cases on hand, run through those every month, every 2 months, then you'll always have it fresh. And keep in mind, they always put an expiry date on things. It doesn't mean that it's going to actually go bad or it's actually going to be leaching chemicals, but it can make the water taste funny. So
the way I look at it right now, times are good right now. Water is readily accessible. So if you want to rotate it out at the same time you rotate your gas, there's no harm, right? If it's going to be a reminder for you that you're doing your gas every 6 months or whatever, and you want to rotate your water at the same time, why not? It's not going to hurt anything because it's readily available.
Yep.
And then just have a plan in place for if it's not readily available, how you're going to rotate it out then, because then it's obviously a lot harder to get new. But times are good.
Absolutely.
Why not rotate it? It's not going to hurt.
Yep.
One interesting thing that I'd put in here is years ago camping, we were using the sort of lever action ceramic filter pump that goes sort of directly onto a wide mouth Nalgene bottle. And getting water was really a pain in the ass. And whoever had to do water duty sitting down at the edge of the water or going out in a canoe to get clean stuff away from shore. And by the end of the trip, you're always dehydrated because water is such a pain. We've started, sort of the guys I like to go camping with, we started using this fancy carbon filter nanotube technology that basically runs an IV bag of dirty water, gravity fed through a filter system to a clean bag on the other side. And it is phenomenal. And now that water isn't a concern, we all drink well. You've got clean water to cook with, do dishes. You're not rationing it at all. So it, for us, it was really a game changer. So it is something that's part of my preps in terms of just having it with my camping stuff and having sort of a backup ready to go if I need to be self-sufficient somewhere for a while. If it's dirty water, I know I can make it cleaner. So it makes me happy. But you can't let the filter freeze. So just keep that in mind. So if it's winter out, that's going in my sleeping bag.
Fair enough.
So anyway, a link for it and a picture of it. I just threw it up in the notes just so we can see what I'm talking about. It's also really nice because if the filter gets bunged, you take your clean water bag, you lift it up, it does a back flush, it puts all the whatever's caught back into the dirty bag on that side of the filter. You dump it out and it's ready to go for more. So
that's the platypus. Is that picture you put in here? All right. Darius was asking in the live chat here what system it is. So it just says platypus on it.
So, and there'll be a link to it in the show notes when
there's
those get published.
Yep.
Yep.
There's a link for. I got mine at Mount Equipment Co-op, but I think it's available all sorts of places. Anyway, it's a.
I will
fantastic.
throw that in now. I'll put it in the
There you
live
go.
chat for everybody.
There you go. So yes, we've been very impressed with this system, with some knowledgeable friends who have taught me all sorts of wonderful things about camping.
Very nice. I'll have to check that out. And anybody sitting in the live chat right now, the link is up on Facebook and YouTube. So, all right. Shall we move into the podcast challenge?
Your challenge for this week is to be well hydrated and build up your emergency water storage. Work on a renewable system, or check out the deal of the week coming up for a great deal on prepackaged.
All right. We should mention book club. So we're doing book club. It's Dr. Alton's book on first aid. So
Survival Medicine Handbook.
Survival Medicine Handbook. The name escaped me there. Thank you.
For when help is
And,
not coming.
Yeah, and there's actually a new version of that coming out, which I'm really excited to get my hands on because it's been updated. Because that was one of his earlier books. It's great, and everything I've read of his is fantastic. He's been on the show a couple of times, which we really appreciate, and it's I can't wait to get the new one because I'm an unashamed fan, and always great information. I learn something new every time I read through those books.
So he's hopefully, from what I've been reading, the new edition will be out in September-ish. They're just putting the final touches on everything, updating some images, doing the proofreading and editing thing.
Fantastic.
So hopefully, and I believe that's the 4th edition.
Yeah.
So that's coming out in September.
I think my printed copy is the 2nd edition, and that's.
I think I've got. I think that's what I have, 2nd or 3rd.
Yeah.
But so we're gonna review that book for book club.
Cool. And that's the last week of first week of August. When is that?
End of August.
End of August, yeah.
End of August.
We got some time yet.
Excellent.
Yep.
That's
and those who are audiobook folks, there is an audiobook version of this book. So that's about 10 hours long.
Yeah, it's a reference book. It's not one that you
is,
necessarily want to read cover to cover, but it's one that you want to know where the stuff is pretty quickly.
No, it's a good book. It's worth it.
Absolutely.
Upcoming events. So Maple Seed, again, mapleseedrifleman.com/events. Check it out and get out and put some rounds down range if you can. I've got deal of the week.
Deal of the week, 24 bottles of water at Walmart. Works out to about 2 cents per 100 milliliter. Not a bad deal. Those cases come up on sale pretty regularly. Now's a great time to store a few cases away, and maybe work with your mag. See if you can work a volume deal. There are lots of distributors out there that will give you a deal if you order a whole pallet's worth. So see if you can find something better than 2 cents per 100 mil, which is a pretty darn good price. So check them out. That's at Walmart, and that's across Canada.
If only they would sell a 2-4 beer for that price.
Well, I mean, Bud Light's pretty much the same thing, so you're not missing out.
Yeah. Yep, this is true.
Making love in a canoe.
Fizzy water. Yeah.
Oh boy. So we'll move to some shout outs.
Ian, who had to duck out, he had a shout out to the Champion Generator Parts Store. It was clean, organized website, fast and cheap shipping. So that's good for them, I suppose.
Yeah,
that's great. Love when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
I will actually add to that. I've been to one of their offices to get help with a couple of really specific questions, and they're fantastic people. Just sort of the sales guy came out of the office, and sort of if he didn't know something, he found the guy that did know something, and I was quite impressed with them.
Nice.
I'm going to shout out Jim and Evan, who were very, very, very helpful in my little septic adventures this week. I like learning things from smart people, especially if I'm doing things that I don't want to do wrong.
How'd you end up on the podcast then?
I'm just riding coattails. That's all I do. Anyway, I owe them a thank you. So, and probably a case of decent beer.
Fair enough.
Decent beer. That's serious right there.
That
Yeah,
is
there you
serious.
go.
Yeah.
It was a serious job.
They really pulled you out of the shit, huh?
That they did.
We'll mention the PDF the survival PDF collection at worldstudybible.com/moreonline.htm. Also in the show notes, check them out. Lots of invaluable PDFs, and that'll be, maybe we'll do another tech episode and figure out how to make that available in a grid down situation.
There's most likely a way.
I'm sure there is.
All right, we'll move into email and iTunes reviews. So we've got one titled CPP. We get 5 stars out of it. Says one of the top 3 best shows on podcast. Does Jeff ever get excited? Great content. It's a good question. Yes, Jeff does get excited at the odd time.
But there's usually a lot of beer involved.
There's usually a lot of beer involved. And usually when it comes to a microphone and talking, he's very calm, cool, and collected. So you will not know he's excited, but he does get excited at times, yes.
And we got another 5-star review from Josh in Perth in Australia. And he says, great show, entertaining, interesting, and insightful. Keep up the great work. It's appreciated. Well, Josh, we appreciate you.
It's awesome.
And I think Perth is physically about as far away as you can get before you start getting close again, right? So I think that's our furthest review ever.
I think so, yeah.
I think so.
That's awesome.
You've now set a record for us, Josh. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, with that, I will bring episode 124 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or, of course, your favorite podcast app. Please help us out. Submit a review. It does help other people find us and confirm that Jeff does stay calm.
We do record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want an early peek at the show, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notifications tab. That gives you an alert when we're going live. Also, find us on Facebook. Do the exact same thing, and it will tell you the same thing. You can contact me directly, Alan at prepperpodcast.ca, and that's Alan with 1 L.
Any feedback for the show, or if you're looking for me, feedback at prepperpodcast.ca works quite nicely.
Yeah, you can contact Ian at the Island Retreat at gmail.com. He's also apparently on Gab and Odyssey at the Island Retreat. And of course, you can find him on the Canadian Patriot Podcast, recording on Monday nights at 9 p.m. on YouTube. And there's a Discord group called the Canadian Patriot Podcast. Flip an email to feedback at prepperpodcast.ca if you're interested in getting into that. You can check out Rapid Survival at rapidsurvival.com and get me there on the live chat. You can also email me at feedback at prepperpodcast.ca. Thanks for joining us this evening. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and keep hydrated.